Listeners to Love 101 FM are advised that the views and opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of Love 101 FM.
Hello and welcome to the award-winning The Morning Watch on Love 101 FM. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. A special welcome to our listeners on love101.org. And if you are overseas and on the move, U.S. listeners can access us at 712-832-8001. And if you are in the UK, 0330-332-6541, or join us via the Love 101 FM app that can be downloaded from the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. You can also join us on Love 101 FM Facebook and YouTube live in the first watch today. Time is up. Should there be term limits for the Prime Minister? And in second watch, was justice delayed but not denied? Reviewing the challenges, triumphs, and psychological effects in the Mario Dean trial. For our social media question, we ask, what are your thoughts on term limits for the Prime Minister of Jamaica? Share your responses on our Love 101 FM Facebook page and YouTube channel, and also on WhatsApp, 876-997-3125, using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll share your response later on the program, but first, here's I quote.
All right, good morning, good morning. Today's I quote says, let's just bring it up real quick. Right, today's I quote says, "Time and tide wait for no man." This one is from Jeffrey Chaucer.
Or for no woman, or for no boy, or for no girl.
Nobody.
Interesting. Nobody. Good morning, Jacob.
Good morning.
The first watch. We'll be back after this break.
This Wednesday, May 28, you're invited to listen to the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development sectoral debate presentation by the Honorable Desmond Mackenzie at Gordon House, 81 Duke Street, Kingston, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. live on Love 101 FM radio. That's the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development sectoral debate, Wednesday, May 28, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Listen live on the family station, Love 101.
This Testimony Tuesday ends on Alive May 27. Get ready for a powerful ride. At 2:15, don't miss the evidence. The heart-pounding testimony of Samantha Nelson, kidnapped, assaulted, her life hanging by a thread. But Mercy stepped in and said, no, it's raw, it's real, and it will leave you speechless. Then at 3 p.m., the journey continues with Pastor Brian. From a dark and troubled past to a destiny filled with purpose and power. You don't want to miss this. 2 stories, 1 message. Hope lives here. Stay tuned inside Alive this Testimony Tuesday with me, Sarah M. the Chirpy One. It's unlike anything you heard before.
What's your problem with tattoos? Are all piercings the same? And since we're talking about body modifications, what do you think about plastic surgery, scarification, neck rings, tongue splitting, bone shaping, or even bodybuilding, and perhaps others? What does the Bible say? This week's new feature, Behind the Bible, Ronald Gale will teach us some cultural and historical facts about the Bible that is not in the Bible. From museums to lost trails and cities, forgotten traditions, and archaeological finds. Tuesday, May 27, on The Rock, join guests Pastor Dion Lindo and Dr. Paul Bourne as they discuss the topic tattoos, piercings, and other body modifications. That's The Rock, Tuesday, May 27 at 10 a.m. here on the family station, Love 101.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. In some countries, there are what they call term limits for their leaders, particularly those at the apex of the political structure, such as a president. And as far back as 2010 here in Jamaica, then Prime Minister, the Honorable Bruce Golding, introduced a bill in Parliament which proposed to limit the length of time a person can serve as Prime Minister. Well, the issue has arisen again. In fact, back in about 2016, or leading up to the 2016 general election, the Honorable Prime Minister, then Mr. Andrew Holness, now Dr. Andrew Holness, had raised the issue, and he had declared that he had declared that he would introduce legislation for term limits for prime ministers. Well, how important are term limits at this time of our political history leading up to the general elections, which are constitutionally due, can I say shortly, this year? What are the pros and cons of term limits, and why is the issue coming back up at this time? Why wasn't it coming up before? Well, we have as guests this morning to discuss what could be quite an interesting topic. Pastor Percival Palmer, Associate Pastor, Fellowship Tabernacle, Kingston, and Mr. Chase Neal. Chase Neal is the Vice President of the United Independence Congress, Jamaica's third registered political party, popularly called the UIC. Chase Neal, Percival Palmer. Pastor Palmer, good morning to you both.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning. Are you both well, I hope? Yes, you're both well?
Yes, I'm great.
Yes, just a little morning sniffles.
Just a little morning.
Sir,
Mr.
I should
Neal.
correct you. I'm not the president of the UIC. I'm the vice president for Middlesex County for the UIC. So just a little correction.
I misspoke. I'm so sorry. I thought I'd said vice president, but apparently I said president. My humble apologies.
Vice president.
I said vice president?
Yes, you did.
Oh, because I was a little shocked. Well, okay, fine. Well, I was.
As you speak about misspeak, we misspeak a lot in politics. You know that, right?
Mr. Palmer. Okay, so I did say vice president, so I did not misspeak. Good morning, gentlemen. How are you both, sirs?
I am great. I'm wonderful.
Excellent. Getting right into it. How important are term limits, and why is this discussion coming up at this time when the Honorable Dr. Andrew Holness would be going up for, would it be a third term? If he were to succeed, if his party were to succeed at the polls, is it that some persons are a little bit green with envy in the event that he were to be successful in his third bid as Prime Minister? Why is the issue coming back up at this time? And how important are term limits? Seriously, starting with you, Pastor Palmer. Why is it so important?
Look, I think you have to. All right. You pointed in your introduction, my friend, that there are some countries that have put it into law, like US, for instance. You can't serve more 2 terms, and you'd ask, why would they have done
Pastor
that?
Palmer, can I say something? I don't know if it's a joke or not, but have you heard that there are some Trump 2028 shirts on sale?
Yeah, I've heard about that, but he has dispelled that. So in dispel that. So, but I'm saying, I know what is the context? Is it? Yes. To me, it speaks to the fact that those persons in their wisdom,
yes,
figure that 2 terms is sufficient, and then if that is sufficient for somebody to carry a mandate that they would have had in terms of carrying out their policies. So they says, you know what? And then the whole thing of refreshing leadership, because you know what happens to you in time is at the apex of something, especially in politics. You can become jaded and think that this is your divine right to rule.
You're borrowing a word from you're borrowing a word from former Minister of Education Ronald Thwaites, who said that persons can become jaded after a while when they're in the house too long.
Yeah, he said that. So I think it is in that context. And then, as we spoke about misspeaking,
yes,
to me, it is important that when you speak about such matters, that you consider the gravity of what you're saying.
yes.
Having done your research, you're not speaking off the top of your head or as the mouth speak anything. And so, in the context, Bruce Golan did it because it is considered wisdom. Because remember, Bruce has been in this politics for a very long time, you know. When I was a boy, I remember Bruce Golan as 1980. So I've been seeing all of what was happening. You say, you know what happened? Because I know what I know, I think it is the proper thing. And he introduced it. And again, on the campaign trail, because that was the public sentiment out there, having seen what was happening, and the people said, yeah, man, that is a good thing. And people still believe it is a good thing. I'm going to invite my political friends to speak because I know it has been something that has been in their manifesto. So
well, I was about to ask Mr. Chase Neal to comment. And Mr. Chase Neal, as the Vice President of the UIC, your party, of course, could become the government someday. I don't know if it will be this round or another round in the future. And it would be interesting to hear you repeat or to elucidate on what the UIC's position is on term limits and why. Chase Neal.
All right, thank you, Sir Marshall. Now, when we bear in mind why the issue of term limits came about, we see that it former colonies of colonizing countries like Britain that came up with this rule that presidents or semi-presidents should have a term limit because they wanted to avoid the royal. So the United States, for example, came in with a term limit because of their history with the royalty. They did not want anybody to stay in command of the country for a long time like a king. Now, in Jamaica's context, we know why people would want a term limit because the Jamaican populace, personal votes might be, does not have any confidence in our governance structure in light of the corruption that is been going on. There are many years of failed election promises. There are many years since 1962, and even before that, in 1944, we got universal adult suffrage, where people are coming to terms that it makes no sense to vote, which is reflected in the poor turnout of elections. Now, because we perceive that our leaders, and rightly so, are corrupt and the system is corrupt, we think that term limits is a fix for the problem. But what we really need to do is fix the system and institute checks and balances and accountability rather than term limits. Now, why?
Interesting.
Yes, we don't want to be swapping out competent and capable leaders, for example, because of our desire for better leadership or less corruption. If we have a leader who is good for the country, for the citizens, what we need to do is ensure that there are appropriate checks and balances, individual branches of government that are independent of each other and are able to hold each other accountable for the people.
Vice President Chase Neal, if you can hold that thought for a second, Vice President of the UIC Chase Neal, because I'm getting a signal that we are already upon a break. Hold the thought and continue your point after the break, please. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
Time and Love is now 7:15 a.m.
Purchasing a vehicle is a lot more attainable with a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan. You'll be able to have your loan processed fast and hassle-free. We make it affordable with low interest rates. Your payments are manageable with up to 10 years to repay. Owning a new vehicle is comfortable with up to 100% financing. With a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan, your next ride is ownable and insurable. With discounts on auto insurance, with a Sagicor Bank Auto Loan, you'll be able to own the car of your dreams.
It's the Media Madness sale at Home and Things. 2 days only. This Friday and Saturday only. Get 25 to 75% off every single item in store. From tiles, bathroom fixtures and vanities, windows and doors, hardware, home decor and more. 2 days only. 25 to 75% off every single item in store. These deals are too good to miss. Hurry now to Home and Things, Woolworth Road and Constant Spring Road for the Media Madness sale. This one I go mad.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the first watch, and the topic is Time is Up. Should there be term limits for the Prime Minister? Our guests, Pastor Percival Palmer, Associate Pastor, Fellowship Tabernacle, Kingston, and Mr. Chase Neal, Vice President of the United Independence Congress, Jamaica's third registered political party. Chase Neal, you're making some interesting points just before the break, which appeared to include that term limits might not necessarily be the panacea to address the issues of corruption. What is really required is to fix the system. I hope I didn't paraphrase you incorrectly, sir. Please continue your thoughts.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you, Sir Marshall. Now, when we bring in this term limits, what we're actually doing is putting artificial caps on leaders, whether they're effective, whether they're bad leaders, and then preparing to switch them out for persons in the future who are coming into the same system with its faults that generates the corruption that we have a problem with. Now, if we put a person in a dirty environment, no matter how good that person is, their work will be tainted. So if we keep switching out leaders with an imposed term limit and the system itself is not fixed, there's no accountability, there is no way for us to ensure transparency and efficient handling of the public's affairs, then we will not have fixed the problem. So what we need is a system that ensures that each branch of government and agencies have no conflict of interest, that they are independent of each other. There is no chance for nepotism, but each holds each other accountable, and the people also have a say to recall their leaders if their leaders are not acting in their best interest. Now, when people are elected to be our representatives, it is we the people who, well, ideally make the choice. So if the people decide that this MP, for example, or this minister, for example, is the person who is best suited to guide our affairs, then the people must be allowed to make that decision. When we impose term limits, we rob our people of the chance to allow the person that we want to handle our affairs for us in the best way possible to do so. So what we need is a system.
I understand. Were you through with your thought? Because I wasn't sure if you were quite finished.
All right, I rest for now.
For now. Because it's interesting what you said, Mr. Neal, because two things. One, whilst you have term limits on the face of it, you could have people behind the political structure manipulating things in the background and putting up their persons up front even finding ways to propagandize the public and manipulate the public into voting for them, whilst the corruption of the political system continues. I think that is another concern. Maybe you would have said what I just said, but as you spoke, that came to mind. But then there's another issue. And I don't know if it's because over time persons have been sort of schooled to think a particular way about term limits, as if it is the panacea or the way to address a problem. Because if you take a look at an article in the Gleaner, a recent article in the Gleaner entitled, well, not so recent anymore, Term Limits. This is just short of 2 years old, September the 28th, 2023, the writer Kimon Francis. And what came up in that article is that an overwhelming majority of Jamaicans believe that term limits must be introduced. I'm actually reading from here. I'm going to jump down to paragraph 2. The findings were tallied in the latest Don Anderson poll, latest at the time, revealing that 77.1% of Jamaicans believe that the number of times a person running the country is allowed to seek re-election should be capped. And in comparison, 18.2% said there should be no restrictions, whilst 4.7% said they were not sure or did not have an opinion. It goes on to say further, let me finish. Let me go on further, sir, please. 1 second. Further, 54.6% of those interested in term limits want the person elected as prime minister to serve no more than 2 terms. 25.8% would allow a third term. 9.5% said 1 term only. 6.8% said no more than 3 terms, while 3.3% said they were unsure or did not know. Before you come back in, Percival Palmer, Associate Pastor, Fellowship Tabernacle, Kingston, Chase Neal, Vice President of the UIC. Any thoughts? Because it seems as if whether persons have been propagandized to believe that term limits are the way to go, or persons don't know any other way, or they're just tired of the corruption. Whatever the reason is, these are the results of the Don Anderson poll at the time. Chase Neal.
Interesting. Can I come in?
Go ahead. Yes, Chase Neal, you're the one I'm asking to respond to that.
Yes, it would have been interesting if we got the why, the reason. If we're going to solve any problem, we must go to the source of the problem, the reason, the why. We know that people are tired of the corruption, and there is this wide perception, which has been proven over the years, that politicians go in to enrich themselves. So you don't want somebody going in for multiple getting richer and richer, while the majority of the people don't benefit from the same. So with the understanding of the why, the persistent corruption, and the fact that our politicians enrich themselves at the expense of the people, you would not want, with that knowledge, somebody to continue with indefinite terms. However, if we should look at what the system is, where the reality is that private backers are the ones who fund the campaign of these parties, and whoever funds you controls you, you would realize why it is that our elected representatives act for the best interest of their benefactors rather than the people, which spills over to the inefficiency and the corruption that we have. And when we look at the fact that there is no separation of powers really between the executive and legislative arms of government, we see where the legislative is not poised to effectively hold the executive in check. So if we fix all of this,
One second, Percival Palmer. Finish your point.
If we fix all of this and take the funding of our representatives out of the hand of private backers, which have their own interests, not the interests of the public at heart, and if we ensure through policies, through laws, that the executive within itself, as a series of checks and balances to hold everyone accountable, there frequent reporting. There are bodies that ensure, for example, that the executive does not dip into the public purse. Let me use that term. That the legislative cannot be manipulated by the executive, but do their jobs properly. Then we will have a fix of these issues, and so we will not be tossing out the baby with the bathwater. For if we do have an effective leader, we toss this leader out because of our need for term limits. What we need to do is fix what is wrong with the system that causes us to want to go for a knee-jerk cure.
Chase Neil, to be clear, the UIC, is it in favor of term limits or it's against it?
No, we are not in favor of term limits. It is not effective.
I see. Understood. And what about the legislators? Should there be term limits on the the members of the legislature? Sorry. Chase Neil.
If the people want their representative, because it's really the
people. So if people want them back there, they should remain there.
They should remain there as long as they're capable. If they're not capable, the people should be able to remove them.
Right. So once the electorate wants the prime minister or the president or the parliamentarian to be there, etc., they should remain there. Understood. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your replies. Pastor Percival Palmer. Term limits.
Yes,
that Don Anderson poll I made reference to in that 2023
it's kind of interesting. Yeah, because but you see the sentiment of the people. That's what they want. So it runs counter in terms of what UIC is saying. The people there say they want term limits, and that's because that's their liberality. But I want to shift it a little, the conversation a little. I believe, and this is my strong opinion, term limits really don't come into the picture if we have settled in terms of what is a vision for our country, what it is that we want, what it is that we see. So it means then whatever political party or whatever leader is there, we as a people have decided this is what we want, this is what we need, and whoever is there, you are accountable to putting everything in place for us to achieve that. That there's a vision that is bought into by our leaders, then the leaders are just servants of the people in terms of implementing it. And with that, you would have put in all of the measures, the counterbalances, that corruption don't become a national feature. You see that thing about what happened in terms of backers. It's a major thing. It happens around the world. Let us not be naive to believe that it's a part of the politics wherever you go. The system that we are, the systems, the systems that we put in place based on the vision, the national vision that we have. The leaders go, they're bought into it. So they are just implementing what it is we need as a people. So if it's a good leader and he's implementing it, then term limits really don't become a question. You understand what I'm saying?
I see. So if there is a leader in power,
yes,
and he's
doing what the people want to do,
yes,
and it is within what we're expecting, then we don't have a problem.
Yes, but then if you have term limits on paper, if there's a law that says you must have term limits, if you have a law that says you must have term limits, maybe you want to mute yourself for a moment there, Pastor Palmer, because we're hearing your other conversation.
Yes, so I'm just saying that. Sorry.
Sure.
Because
so what? No, the point I make. Well, we're almost out of time already. Let me just ask this quickly because we're almost out of time already. Never enough time on the morning watch. Should there be a referendum on this issue? Chase Neil?
Yes.
There should be. Pastor Percival Palmer, should there be a referendum on this issue?
Yes.
Chase Neil, you had said yes as well?
Yes. There should be a referendum on the issue, but the people should be educated first. I want you to understand why and the pros and cons of such.
I see. And what about, even if there is a referendum on the issue, let us say that persons, in terms of their education on the issue, they still go along and say we should have these term limits, regardless of what persons like yourself, Chesney, are saying. You have this great leader, and he or she is, doing a very great job. But the term limits have just arrived, and they can't go any further. You would agree that should be the end of their term in politics, in terms of certainly. They can't
serve in other things.
Oh, that's what you're saying, Mr.
They can serve in other areas. Yeah, man.
I see. Understood. Yeah, man. Chase Neil, your thoughts? Yeah. They can serve in other areas after the term?
Yeah, man.
That is not
not the UI.
That is not effective. That is not effective. If we have a vision for the country and we have a plan, a long-term plan, because our social issues need long-term solutions. When your term limit expires, you are no longer in the seat to direct and manage.
I see.
Yes.
Have to leave it there this morning, Mr. Chase Neil. Have to leave it there this morning, Mr. Chase Neil, because not only never enough time on the morning watch, but we are completely and totally out of time. Very interesting discussion this morning, gentlemen. It really was a great conversation. Thank you both for your time and for your thoughts. Listeners, please stay with us. We'll be right back on the morning watch.
Open a deposit account in the JN Bank Savings Streams promotion and save monthly for a chance to win an all-expenses paid trip to Peru. Enter now. The time by JN Bank Savings Streams promotion is
7:31.
The Portmore Resilience Park is now 50% complete. Yes. And it is set to be open this summer.
Residents of Portmore will have an area that is accessible by all, with walking trails, green spaces, and lots more.
Portmore for sure. I never know that the Dust Bowl could have go through such a transformation. This is a government that cares about its people, where we work, and where we live.
Brought to you by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation.
Jamaica and its workforce are advancing quickly. Life-changing opportunities are arising. You need training and support. We are the Renewed Heart NSTA Trust, committed to providing new and emerging skills training and opportunities. Come to Heart. We'll help you claim your place in the workforce of the future.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley. Marshall, let's take a look at the newspapers to see what Jamaicans and others are saying and doing. And we have here in the Gleaner a lead story here: highway robbery. Trans-Jamaican Highway, TJH, has stepped up its efforts to tackle the toll evasion, a problem that continues to escalate, according to Managing Director Ivan Anderson. Toll evasion. Interesting. We turn now to the Jamaica Observer. Dawes sued. Neurosurgical drill dispute taken to court. And we have here in Loop Jamaica News. Corrected Shelley-Ann Fraser Price Drive sign installed in Waterhouse. Those and many other stories in our various news sources. Coming up next, we'll read some of the feedback from our Facebook, YouTube, and WhatsApp question, which is, what are your thoughts on term limits for the Prime Minister of Jamaica? If you haven't done so yet, leave your responses on our Facebook or YouTube, Love 100 from Jamaica Live, and also WhatsApp comments and voice notes too. 876-9973-125 using the hashtag The Morning Watch. We'll be right back.
This Wednesday, May 28, you're invited to listen to the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development sectoral debate presentation by the Honorable Desmond McKenzie at Gordon House, 81 Duke Street, Kingston, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. live on Love 101 FM radio. That's the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development sectoral debate, Wednesday, May 28 from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. Listen live on the family station Love 101.
Okay, where are the campus heights? Students are strapped up in a price.
On the next Campus Connection, we will be focusing on the importance of family. Family is a precious gift and plays a significant role in shaping our lives, providing emotional support, socialization, and practical help. You are invited to join the conversation with Nicole Adamson, Director of Jamaica Island Nutrition Network, Nicole Ann Harvey of the University of the West Indies, Romaria Mitchell from Passion and Purity, and Sheikha Walsh, Family and Counseling Ministries Director, Church of God of Prophecy, James Mountain. You don't want to miss our honor roll guest, Samoya Russell, UTech School of Engineering Spiritual Development Coordinator. Campus Connection is brought to you by Heart NSTA Trust. Skill is power. That's Campus Connection Tuesday, May 27 at 5:30 p.m. only on the family station, Love 101.
Hey, walk one, everybody want to move.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. Now, for your responses to our social media question, what are your thoughts on term limits for the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Jacob?
All right, so we have some responses on our WhatsApp line. This one comes to us from Cherry in Spanish Town. Cherry says, good morning. Jamaica social issues need long-term visions. No human can possibly do that in 5 years. Edna sent a voice note. Let me hear from her.
Good morning, Morning Watch. Good morning, Love 101 listeners and staff. Term limit for me, I'm not really with it. I agree with what Mr. Jace Neal said. Yes, I totally agree with him. Term limit should not be. The people continue to speak. Let we, the people, continue to speak. We are the voters. We know what is wrong and what is right for us. We speak by our votes. So the term limit thing now is not really relevant to me. You understand? It would be a way of killing the progress or killing the prosperity. I think so. So I don't think there should be any at all. You understand? And if there should be any term limit, it should be at least 3 terms. Yes, that's my opinion.
All right, thank you, Edna, for your opinion. Rose from Hampton says, good morning to everyone. I think that there should be limits for Prime Minister. Without term limits, things are corrupt in Jamaica. Those are our responses so far.
Thank you, sir. Well, you want my opinion, Jacob?
No, man, just continue.
Okay, sir, you don't want my opinion. We move right into the second watch. And the Mario Dean case, there has been a verdict in the Mario Dean case. Now, sentencing has not been done yet. It is to take place in July this year. But there has been a verdict, and the verdict was guilty in relation to the 3 accused persons. And persons will say, well, they had to wait a long time for this trial to start. It did start, and there has now been a verdict. What are persons saying about the verdict? Remember that there has been no sentencing yet, so technically the matter is still before the court. We have as guests to discuss this very interesting topic, Chris Nesbeth, licensed associate clinical psychologist, T-House Therapy, and attorney at law, Sylvester Hemmings. Good morning, Sylvester Hemmings of Counsel, and good morning, Chris Nesbeth. How are you both?
Good morning.
Good morning, your Stocky and your guest.
Yes. Now, some persons will argue, Sylvester Hemmings, attorney at law, some persons will argue why it took so long. We are both attorneys, but you're our guest this morning, and I'd like you to sort of, not specifically to the Mariadine case, but just generally indicate what are some of the challenges that you can have in the court system, counsel on either side, the prosecution, the defense, and just the system generally speaking, that can sometimes result in a case not starting as early as the public expected to start. Mr. Hemmings.
That's a good question, but it's a question that is not so difficult to answer.
You go right ahead, sir.
The resources that have been provided for within the justice system is just about insufficient to deal with the magnitude of cases and issues and matters arising. And when I speak of resources, I'm not necessarily speaking of money, but money, yes, but the resources in terms of personnel and quality personnel. And when you speak of the justice system, I would imagine you're broadening it to include the police.
Yes, man. Yes.
The judiciary.
Yeah.
Civil servants that are
persons who work in the court's office. Yes.
The various groups, the justice of the peace. And in fact, too, I would want to include the very republic itself.
Yeah.
In relation to the feeling or getting jurors aboard to judge cases, to deal with the cases. In fact, like I said, it's a very big question you ask, but I think in this particular case, the difficulty in finding jurors was one of the challenges, I think, that prolonged and dragged out this particular case. So to find adequate, good, and fair jurors is really a challenge. I think that is one of the is part of the root of the problem in this country.
Yeah,
where the people themselves are not prepared to come forward and be a part of the process, including witnesses and themselves.
Yeah.
I don't know if that has summarized.
It's a very good answer, Mr. Hemmings. I'm grateful to you for that response. And you mentioned quality personnel, on whichever side or in whatever sphere they serve in the justice system. You mentioned that, which is also a key factor. I'm going to switch to our licensed associate clinical psychologist for a moment, Chris Nesbeth, because it's one thing to talk about these things almost in the abstract, but for someone who has to interface with the justice system as a member of the public, maybe even as a witness, maybe as a family member, maybe the family members of the victims, and the need for closure for this to all come to an end. What are some of the things that, as a clinical psychologist, an associate clinical psychologist, you foresee as being things that you need to address in terms of how you deal with these sorts of things, even just emotionally, sir?
And when you say how you deal with these, do you mean on the individual level? Do you mean as somebody who is treating somebody who is going through this process?
I was thinking of the individual level, not that you are treating the person, you yourself, but just generally speaking, how does a human being who is interfacing with the system and seeing all of this, especially if they have been personally impacted,
Yes.
how do you think they are going to be dealing with this, and how can they address it?
Well, it's a very stressful situation, if you can imagine, because you're not going up against another person, you're going up against an institution. And as I said earlier,
Hold
the
that
resources.
thought a second, Chris Nesbitt,
Yeah, man.
because I see where we might be upon a break already. Yes, we are upon a break now. So hold that thought for a second, Chris Nesbitt. Listeners, please stay with us. Very interesting topic. We'll be right back on the Morning Watch.
It is now 7:45 a.m.
It's the Media Madness sale at Home and Things. 2 days only. This Friday and Saturday only. Get 25 to 75% off every single item in store. From tiles, bathroom fixtures and vanities, windows and doors, hardware, home decor, and more. 2 days only. 25 to 75% off every single item in store. These deals are too good to miss. Hurry now to Home and Things, Woolworth Road and Constant Spring Road for the Media Madness sale. This one I go mad.
Mama work hard, for real. She do the most to send me and my brother go school. So, the dream was always to go to university. Well, I fulfilled 2 dreams with 1 Jane Bank savings plan, you know. I further my education and I make mama proud.
Save so you can make the par, travel par, graduate like a star.
Stop wishing you could. With your Jane Bank savings, you absolutely can. Jane Bank will help you find a way.
Welcome back to the Morning Watch. I'm your host, Stokeley Marshall. We are in the second watch, and the topic is, was justice delayed but not denied? Reviewing the challenges, triumphs, and psychological effects in the Mario Dean trial, our guests are Chris Nesbitt, licensed associate clinical psychologist, Tea House Therapy, and attorney at law, Sylvester Hemmings. Chris Nesbitt, just before the break, you were making a point. Please continue.
Right. So earlier, Mr. Hemmings was saying that we know that the resources that we have in terms of all the different stakeholders in the justice system make it so that these things can be more of a marathon than a sprint. And that kind of long-term chronic stress, when you don't even know what the outcome of the deliberation will be, is catastrophic. And so you mentioned it's not just mercy affairs of the mother, but it's also the family members who are unsure of what's going to be happening. It's just chronic stress that you're dealing with at that point, and probably a big sense of hopelessness.
And probably a big sense of hopelessness. So I know that, of course, we know the verdict so far in the Mario Dean trial. We don't have we don't know the sentencing yet, because the sentencing date hasn't come yet. And not focusing specifically on the Mario Dean case, but what are some of the thoughts that can go through the mind of a family member when they see or when they find out what the verdict is, whether it is guilty or not guilty? Chris Nesbitt, take us through some of the things that, or the range of emotions a family member can experience. Let us, for example, assume the verdict was not guilty, and then if it were guilty, as in the Mario Dean case where the verdict is guilty. Chris Nesbitt.
Yeah, man. And regardless of the verdict, that you can say it's not guilty, it can be guilty, you're stepping into a whole new reality
Explain.
as a stakeholder. Because if it's a guilty verdict, you are now wondering, well, is the justice system wrong? Assuming you didn't want a guilty verdict, is the justice system incorrect? Have I been looking at this the entirely wrong way? Or, the complete opposite, where it is a not guilty verdict, and you're thinking to yourself, see, I was right all along. So you're stepping into a reality that's either reinforcing the way you were seeing things, or throwing a wrench into the way you were seeing things, your perspective.
Understood.
And so it can go one of two ways there.
Yes. And have you seen some of the comments, reported comments in relation to the verdict concerning Mario Dean's mother? Have you seen some of those? And the range of emotions it is reportedly indicated she would have experienced. I mean, just seeing her image alone, there was an image of her, sort of. I don't want to use the wrong term, but her body seemed to be resting. It would appear on a vehicle, and her face turned in towards the vehicle. I don't know, Mr. Neil. I don't. I'm so sorry. I can't, you using the wrong name. Sorry, Mr. Nesbeth, Chris Nesbeth.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that?
I think it's a beautiful portrait of just, you can get a sense of the gravity of what she was up against. You can get a sense of the,
It's like maybe some sort of relief coming off of her
right.
shoulder. Yeah, some kind of
Yes.
something, some weight coming off of her shoulder, so to speak.
Exactly. I can't imagine what she's feeling. It's a visceral kind of weight being lifted off. You feel lighter, but you
Yeah.
also finally come to this place where you're finishing your grieving process, And so
Finishing your grieving process.
so
Finishing your
it's a
grieving
lot.
process. There's a photograph here published May 23rd, 2025, and I'll read a little bit of it here. Mercia Fraser, hope I didn't pronounce her name incorrectly, shed tears of relief. This is what is reported. I'm not sure what she felt, but that's what's reported. Shed tears of relief moments after jury. My apologies. Moments after the screen jumped a moment there. I'm so sorry. Moments after the jury essentially found the accused persons guilty, and she was just leaning against the car. It was, as you said, Mr. Nesbeth, it's as if a weight would have been lifted off of her shoulders.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yes.
Can you imagine a fight of 10 years?
A
How you
fight
must be
of 10
feeling?
years. Yes. Yes. Sylvester Hemmings. We know that as counsel, we come across litigants who sometimes express a range of emotions after a case is completed, sir. But in terms of reviewing some of the challenges and triumphs and just the psychology of it all in terms of a case, I know as counsel, we are taught to dissociate ourselves personally with what we are doing. But I don't know if you have any comments to share in relation to what the associate psychologist just said, clinical psychologist. Mr. Hemmings? Hope we haven't lost you, Sylvester Hemmings.
Hello, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you now.
Right. That saying one man against the world, seems to sum up that lady's toil over the period.
Yes.
Because as Dr. Nesbitt had commented initially, she has been growing up against an institution, and this institution reeks with injustice. Nobody cannot deny that. The actors in the institutions were there to protect the rights of persons to a large extent, do the very opposite. And the system reinforces injustice, as there is that what people call cover up. I think in this matter here, one of the major witnesses died without any reason or any cause whatsoever, and that raised a great deal of suspicion in my mind that the star witness in the case, and when you consider again the institutional players who were called to account for this person's death, one cannot help but be looking somehow in that direction, because it's not impossible
Well,
And so
we don't want to speculate, but I can understand the concern and why persons would be a little bit suspicious about certain things. But of course, we don't want to speculate. But continue what you're saying, Mr. Hemming.
right, we're not really even speculating because in such a case, the institution would still have to be responsible because such a witness ought properly to be protected as well.
Yes.
Right? So it's not just a question that was the direct cause of the system or players in the system, but the system ought to have been protecting such a witness. And this is very important in dispensing justice, that we secure the witnesses, and this will have spin-off generally in terms of witnesses coming forward, because they will have a sense of being secured.
Yes. Just remind listeners of what the charges were, or what they were found guilty of, I should rather say. Guilty of manslaughter, misconduct in a public office, and perverting the course of justice. And this was, of course, in the Westmoreland Circuit Court. One of the accused persons was found guilty of perverting the course of justice, and the verdicts, the other two persons in relation to the other two charges. So we don't know if the persons found guilty, the three of them, if they'll be appealing their decisions. Well, I certainly haven't heard yet. Two of them represented by one counsel and the other represented by another counsel. We wait to see if they'll be appealing anything, and of course that would come. We would know that more than likely after the sentencing. But again, not to focus specifically on this case, what lessons can we learn from this matter? The length of time it took for the case to actually be tried, the verdict, and the pressure, the stress that can come on all aspects, all persons in the system, starting with you, Mr. Hemmings, and then we have any further comments maybe from our associate clinical psychologist, Mr. Hemmings. When a case takes this long.
In terms of lessons, I think one of the important things is that persons must insist on their rights.
Insist on their rights, yes.
Insist on their rights. For example, this particular lady reminds me of a certain lady in the Bible.
Yes.
Who kept knocking on the doors of the unjust
on
judge.
The unjust judge. I was about to say that. Yes. She never gave up.
Right. And I think this lady's actions over the period somehow aligns with that situation.
Yes.
And at the same time, too, I want to commend the Indicom actors, but at the same time, I think all of the institutions, the police themselves, the Indicom, they have to review it. They are the professionals and try to fast track these matters.
Yeah.
You know, when you get a win, so to speak, you should be able to use that as a motivation.
Momentum. Keep up the momentum.
Right.
Mr. Hemmings, only because of time, I'm getting a signal. Can we get a thought from you, Mr. Nesbitt, before we wrap? A couple seconds, sir. Just a couple seconds.
Yeah, just to extend on what Mr. Hemmings was saying, hope is something you have to hold on to emotionally in these kind of situations, and you have to have support around you. You can't hold all of this on your own.
Hope and support. Mr. Nesbitt and Mr. Hemmings, thank you both for your time and for your thoughts. We unfortunately cannot take any more comments because we're completely out of time. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
Thank you, Stocky.
You're most
welcome. Thank you to your listener. Bless you.
And thank you, listeners, for being with us today. Join us again tomorrow as we look at other topical and controversial issues. And of course, visit the Love 100 FM YouTube channel and Facebook page, and now TikTok at Love 1FM Jamaica. For this and all other Love 101 FM programs, listen to the Morning Watch on our Love 101 app. Download it today and stay connected to the family station, Love 101 FM, the number one gospel station in Jamaica. This has been the Morning Watch. Thanks to our producer Kathy Gale and to our guests. Join me tomorrow as I continue to look at the issues of the day. I am Stokeley Marshall, handing it back to Love in the Morning with Jakal.